Pacific wax myrtle, which is very hardy up here, doesn't need any help at all. This is a red elderberry, some Oregon grape. These are our pardalinum lilies, if you can see up here. These were all in bloom in June and early July. They're a little early this year. This is Ceanothus maritimus, Anchor Bay, and it does real well in our environment here. You have to cut that. I totally botched the name on this.
Did you?
Yeah, this is Ceanothus gloriosus. It looks like Ceanothus maritimus. The native plant garden here encompasses about 1.5 acres, and it's about 15 years old now. It's gone through several iterations and plantings. This is elk clover, Aurelia californica, and it likes high shade and moisture. This is Western Spirea, Spirea deglossii, has a real interesting kind of bubblegum inflorescence on it. Clevelandii Salvia apiana. It's a white and Cleveland sage cross that was discovered down at Rancho Santa Ana Botanical Garden. And that's the parent plant there. I've done lots of cuttings and propagation on it. As you might be aware, we have a tremendous diversity in California. Some plants are going to do well in this North Coast environment, and some plants are not going to do well. So it's been kind of a learning process going through planting with success, planting with failure. I have a lot of plants in the garden that I kind of have personal stories with. This came from my friend's property over near Willow Creek on the tributary to the Trinity River. And it just was a real nice looking fescue, Festuca californica. And I just toyed around with it a little bit, and I'm still experimenting with it. Some of them I have to cage because my Bugs Bunny friends tend to enjoy it as well, so it's a challenge. My name is Mark Moore. I'm the volunteer curator of the Lost Coast Brewery Native Plant Garden. I've been here about 10 years now. I'm a retired biologist from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and I've always had an interest in native plants. This is Lepidoptera fragrans, and this comes from the Channel Islands off Southern California, and has a wonderful fragrance. There's a... Man. We have plants from as far north as Southern Oregon, which is the extreme northern end of the California floristic province, all the way down to southern San Diego County. And some of those are planted right next to each other, and it's fun to interpret the ability of those plants to survive here, being from such diverse places. Peter Raven from Missouri Botanical Garden, he said, "Mark, have you ever tried Lepidoptera?" And I said, "No," I said, "Peter, I don't think I can grow that here. It's probably not the right climate for it." And he said, "If you haven't tried something 3 times in 3 different places, don't tell me you can't grow it." I planted it. Of course, it took off. And then I've taken cuttings and I planted around. This is Arctostaphylos cruzensis. This is a rare Arctostaphylos from down by Hearst Castle. And it's flushing out from the winter. It gets a little beat up here in the wintertime, but then it'll come back. This is another example of one that stays low on the coast, but if you're away from the coast, it gets a little bit taller, maybe 2 feet, 3 feet. I'm particularly interested in the Arctostaphylos and the manzanitas of California. We have about 50 different manzanitas in this garden, including some that are extremely rare, one of a kind, or extinct in the wild. And we've been able to keep them happy here and hopefully have them available should they be needed as cuttings or seed. This is a sunset manzanita. This is Arctostaphylos hookeri crossed with Arctostaphylos pajaroensis, both from Central California. This is Arctostaphylos virgata. I call it Bolinus manzanita. Some people in the nursery trade call it Marin manzanita. If you come around on this side, this manzanita is has an interesting story. This is called Presidio manzanita, Arctostaphylos montana ravenii. It was known from only one plant on the Presidio in San Francisco. It's an extremely rare plant and basically extinct in the wild except for the plants that they've propagated and tried to reintroduce into the Presidio. This manzanita here is unusual. This is Arctostaphylos rudis. This is from Santa Barbara County on Vandenberg Air Force Base. And they say this particular form of Arctostaphylos rudis, which is called shagbark manzanita, was found when they were clearing the runway for the space shuttle at Vandenberg. You know, most native plant gardens in California, the secret to their success is largely getting their plants through the summer drought period. Here, our challenge is to get our plants through the winter because we can have a lot of rain up here. The soil here is a pretty hard clay, and it almost always has some moisture in it. So my desire or interest when I'm putting in the native plants is to improve the drainage of the clay. And to do that, I only use non-organic parent materials like grit, gravel, perlite, and try to get more air into the soil, and then crown the plants just a little bit to help them get through that wet cycle that we have. This area has been planted for about 6 months now, and we brought in about 8 yards of topsoil with grit in it for drainage, and we put the John and Bob's in here. I can't remember what the rate was, but it's in the soil mix here. So I have drainage, I have some mycorrhizae additions and some soil conditioning in here. People are absolutely blown away that we don't irrigate this garden. We don't put any fertilizer on this garden.
So what's your advice to people that want to grow a Mattia hot poppies like yours?
Full sun, excellent drainage, no fertilizer, and no summer water once they're established. Native plants are adapted to an amazing array of soils. California is such an incredibly diverse geologic area. The parent materials and the soils derived from those materials are quite diverse and usually very nutrient poor, and so our California flora has adapted to that, and most of the plants not only do not want a lot of nitrogen in particular, but they reject it, and you will either kill your plants or they'll, what I call burnout, they'll go through a flush of growth and have a greatly shortened life if there's too much nutrition in the soil. Coffeeberry, which is Frangula californica, a little more Lepidoptera, and over in here, this is our Kelsey's dwarf osier dogwood. So this is more of a texture plant. I just enjoy interpreting all of these plants to the public, and it's really fun to educate and inspire them to use more native plants in their home landscapes.